everybody. It's the Elysabeth Alfano Show on WCGO. Thanks for being with me. Hola, amigos. Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí con usted. Oh my gosh, I'm butchering my Spanish, but I have a great guest for you today. I have the very sexy vegan Latin lover. Oh my gosh, you're going to love him because he is so beautiful inside and out. So that treat is coming your way. But if you are with me every Sunday on WCGO, then you know I start the Elysabeth Alfano Show by breaking down the news. So let's do that pretty fast so we can get to Marco Antonio Regil, because that's who we really want. Starbucks, I love you. Good move. You've brought in the Impossible Breakfast Sandwich. Now, you probably remember last week I was talking about Burger King bringing in the Impossible Croissant Breakfast Sandwich. Okay, vegans, FYI, it's not going to be vegan. It's got eggs and cheese and stuff. So, not for us, but that's okay. We know they're not shooting for us. They're shooting for all the meat folks who are like, is this going to be good? And at first I was like, well, why are you having cheese and eggs? Why don't you just make the whole thing vegan? And then I was like, oh, wait a minute. They're trying to let meat eaters realize everything's the exact same, cheese and eggs. The only difference is the meat and how much you don't notice, or it's even better. So I love the founder and CEO of Impossible Foods, Pat Brown. He's wonderful. And also, of course, Ethan Brown, too, of CEO of Beyond Meat. When the Starbucks did pick up the Impossible Burger, Beyond Meat did go down a little bit. Their stock, give or take, around 150 right now. But oh my gosh, they're still doing so great. And I do love Ethan Brown of Beyond Meat. China Starbucks. So how interesting is this? In China, Starbucks picked up Beyond Meat. But here in the US, they picked up the Impossible Breakfast Sandwich. Okay, I have some negative news coming out of Canada. And I'm going to get to the negative news and then the positive news, because I do like Canada, but they're just about to be put on my ST list because a truck bound for slaughter with pigs ran over a peaceful protester and killed her. So just wrap your mind around this. A senior woman of 65 was being kind to animals by giving her over. As I understand it, anyone who was there on the scene had their videos confiscated. I do not know yet if there's an arrest being made. That is to be determined. I do know that there is a bill that just passed, Bill 156 in Canada, that says it increases fines and makes it illegal basically to trespass on farms or processing plants and interfere with any process of slaughter. When has it become law that being kind is a crime? Canada, get it together. Not happy. This link will be on my show notes so that you can all see that. Reagan Russell is her name, and rest in peace. Good news coming out of Canada. Not quite enough to make up for that, though, but good news coming out of Canada. The ticker is Very, Very. Very Good Butchers went public. So on the Canadian Securities Exchange, we now have a public vegan company. They say their tagline is that they butcher beans. I love them for this. So you want to get into the trading thing? You didn't make the Beyond Meat. You lost that one like I did. Gosh darn it. Get into the Canadian Securities Exchange and go get yourself some Very, Vegan Butchers Very. And then my last bit of news is that I have back by popular demand another class I'm offering August 8th. Jumpstart your plant-based life. If you'd like to get some tricks under your belt to get yourself on your plant-based journey, go ahead and hit up my website, elizabethalfano.com/recipes. Enough of news. Let's bring in the very beautiful inside and out. I am not kidding. You're going to love him. Marco Antonio Regil. Marco, thanks for being with me today.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm listening to the news. It's mostly beautiful news. It's amazing how much the movement is growing, how many things we're celebrating. I've been vegan for 13 years. I would have never thought we were going to have so many good and positive news overall.
Yes.
For that,
yes.
That lady, of course.
And thank you for saying that, because everybody who listens to my show, they know that I'm all positive all the time. It's all happy all the time. But I did have to call that one out for like, gosh, maybe they're going in the wrong direction. You are a bit of sunshine all the time, and you're always finding the bright light there. If you don't mind, I think I'd like to sing your praises a little bit so that people can know just who the heck you are. Are you
Thank you so
ready?
much. Thank you.
Okay.
You've already done some of that, but I'll listen with I'll be humble and I listen.
Yes, you can start blushing now. Uh, you are a Mexican television personality, and you've been the host of all the Spanish versions, so many game shows. So, Family Feud and The Price is Right. I just love it. And Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And you had a show on Telemundo The Wall, and now you have Minute to Win It. But more than just being a television show host, you are really the voice of Latin America. So many people trust you. They bring you into their homes. They see you as a confidant. You really reach people. And I'm just so grateful that it's you, because you reach them with all the fun game shows, but you reach them with other important messages too. So I do want to say thank you for being on my show, and thank you for all you do.
No, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for that wonderful welcome and presentation. And I do my best. Lately, I'm spending way more time on online and giving online courses and doing my podcast. And television is slowly but surely fading out. You know, it's like the world is changing so much, and
Yes.
I'm so grateful because I, as a consumer and as a professional, have already been migrating to follow more. I don't have cable anymore. I rarely turn on my TV. I watch YouTube, Instagram, Netflix, Amazon Prime. You know, I've done the migration also, and I love also being participating in shows like yours. So thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm just thrilled to have you here. Well, let's get into all the stuff you do, because you really do have a lot. So, in the beginning of this year, you had a show called The Wall, and
Mhm.
now you have Minute to Win It. But as you say, television kind of drifting away. Let's bring up a picture here of your podcast. Tell everybody about your podcast, because I think you have something like a million downloads. I'm not sure. You tell me, how many downloads do you have on your podcast?
7 million downloads as of now. We have 130 episodes. We started a couple of years ago, and it's a personal development podcast. So we do talk about physical health. We have a lot of vegan doctors and nutritionists and people who just have a vegan lifestyle. But we also have psychologists and sexual experts, sex experts, and
Woohoo!
financial experts. And I share a lot about my own path and emotional intelligence. It's just a podcast about living a healthy lifestyle, which obviously a plant-based diet and the love for animals, for the planet, for ourselves is a very strong part of it. So we don't have a lot of people who are not even at least slightly open to veganism because we just talk about it all the time. So there you go.
I mean, I just can't get over this, how much I love you. So thank you for doing this, because so much of you are from Mexico. So I know that other countries, of course, Guatemala and Honduras and other places, follow you and listen to you, but you are from Mexico, and eating meat is such a big part of the Mexican culture. And I often want to say, but why are you doing that? You've got rice and beans. You are the original vegans. Like, come on, there's so much in Mexican cuisine that doesn't need meat. Help me out there.
Yeah, it's really interesting because there's a group of doctors nowadays promoting what they call la dieta de la milpa, which is the original name that ancient people would used to call the crops. You know, so la dieta de la milpa is basically what local people from the Americas used to eat before the Spaniards came, like hundreds of
Mhm.
years ago. So it was basically beans and rice came from Europe, from Asia, then from Europe. But quinoa that is really now popular is from Peru, as we know it. Beans and all the Mexican, Central American, and South American areas, and tortillas, which are basically made out of corn. Obviously, non-GMO corn, which is the original and real corn. Mexico is
Yes.
known as the corn culture because we have like hundreds of varieties of corn. We have blue corn, pink corn, green corn. You know,
Ooh.
tons of very healthy options. So that's the original, like you said, is the original diet. But we, you know, the culture was influenced by the arrival of the Spaniards, who brought in a lot of diseases when they came
Mm.
in.
Mhm.
Almost half of the population in the Americas was wiped out by the diseases that they brought in. and because there was no antibodies in the, in the systems of the people who lived in this side of the world. Anyway, so they brought a lot of stuff from there, and then we've had, unfortunately, in this case, we've learned a lot of good things from the U.S., but
Mm.
fast food was a really, really, really bad influence. So when McDonald's and Burger King and Carl's Jr. and all of those franchises hit Latin America, the consumption of meat went even higher. But in our original culture, yeah, having more towards a plant-based diet is the original culture. But it is what it is. I was raised eating sausages and ham and
Yeah.
all this, bad foods, because of the influence of the U.S.
Yes, and of course, Mexico isn't the only country that's been
Yeah.
influenced by our fast food. You look at Asia and you think like, oh my gosh, you guys have a rice culture. What are you doing? You're
Mm,
just giving yourself all this heart disease and colorectal cancer and diabetes, which is very expensive, by the way.
right.
Governments be forewarned.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to have a largely sick population. We experience that here in the U.S. So tricky
Rice,
business.
veggies, and tofu. A lot
And
of
tofu.
and tofu,
Yes.
which is delicious.
Yes.
Non-GMO tofu. Yeah, so it's
Yes, yes, I couldn't agree more. Tofu actually is my go to. So every
mm,
morning I have a power breakfast bowl and it's tofu and fresh fruit and hemp seeds and raw non GMO organic oats and a little bit of date syrup. And I'm like, it's 2 minutes because, nothing's cooked, everything's raw. I'm
yeah,
moving on. It's super fast and I love it. It gets me going and it's got like 20 grams of protein. So,
that's
not.
awesome.
Not that we even need that much, but it's certainly got that. So the one thing I hate about radio is all the commercials. So it kills me to take a break because I don't want to leave you, Marco. But we are coming back. It's the Elysabeth Alfano Show on WCGO. Hey, everybody, I'm Jane Unchained. Thanks for sticking with us during this really short commercial break. We're going to get right back into it. Marco Antonio Regil, what is not to love about him? So stick with me, folks. We're coming right back. Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us. It's the Elysabeth Alfano Show on WCGO. I'm here with Marco Antonio Regil, whom I love. We're talking about Mexican cuisine and how originally it's, a very plant-based cuisine and all the things we were mentioning, corn and salsa and rice and beans, of course, avocados. I mean, who could get by without
And
guacamole? Come
fruit.
on, folks. Actually,
And
most
fruit.
people are already, vegan because they love guacamole or they're on their way to
Yeah.
being vegan. And of course, plantains
No, and fruits. Fruits are just
fruits.
yeah. Plantains are from the southeast of Mexico, which is really similar to the Puerto Rican and Cuban thing. Mexico has, just like the U.S. is a big country and has different regions and different cuisines. So the plantains are more of the southeast of Mexico, and but the north of Mexico is different. Central Mexico is different, and like eating fruit in Mexico. If you go to Mexico, any major city or Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, Tulum, you're gonna find delicious and amazing fruits. And having a lot of fruit for breakfast is part of our culture. And
Uh,
here in the U.S., when I go to hotels, it's really hard to find fruits. The only
mm,
fruits you find is papaya and bananas. It's really
mm.
basic, but in Mexico, you will always find on the buffet of a good hotel, you're gonna find all this amazing and delicious variety of food. So that's something I highly recommend. Like, get a big bowl of fruit in the morning when you're visiting Mexico.
I love that. And the fruit, when it's fresh like that, I mean, it's so incredibly sweet. So whenever people say to me, like, oh, Elizabeth, why don't you just, switch out fruit for candy? I realize how hard that is. So I'm not going to say to people, like, fresh fruit is like a sugar fix. So if you have trouble with sugar like I do, and I just have to moonwalk away from that stuff because I cannot be trusted, I'm not going to say it's a 1-for-1. But when I have, let's say, a really good mango in Mexico, it actually
Delicious.
is a 1-for-1. It is
Yeah.
so sweet and so delicious.
That's a good combination. Every when I'm there, I always get like a big papaya bowl, and I put a lot of mango, and sometimes figs, or sometimes there's another fruit called mamey. I don't know what the name is in
Ooh.
English, but it's like a red avocado kind of thing. Is because it's very creamy. So it's not like you
Ah.
can eat a whole mamey, but it's like also very well, very rich, very thick, and it's a sapote is another fruit. It's like a black fruit. It's completely black and it's very watery. And those fruits are very difficult to find here in the U.S. I don't know why, but when you go there, it's like you really open your eyes. So when you go to Mexico or Costa Rica or Guatemala or Peru, I mean, you're gonna see there's a different culture regarding food. Here in the U.S., it's more based on bacon and the sausages and
For the
that
morning,
kind
you
of.
mean?
I mean, we do have that there, of course. That's the influence, but anyways, I mean, you won't suffer if you go there. You won't suffer. And you can make tacos. You can make tacos of cuitlacoche and beans and peppers, and there's
Mm.
all kinds of really delicious options.
So I'm just going to have to tell everybody you have to go to elizabethalfano.com/recipes because one of my favorite recipes is tacos with spicy sweet potatoes and beans and some red peppers. And it's so good. I throw in a little bit of corn, a little bit of avocado. So good. I don't have to have meat in my tacos because really the taco can't fit anymore. I've already put so much stuff in it.
Yeah.
And the beans are so heavy and that spicy with the sweet and the beans is so great. And I'll say my very favorite smoothie I discovered because I was in Sayulita
Mm-hmm.
trying to take basic surfing classes. This is close to Puerto Vallarta. And there are these big avocados. They're really big ones. I don't know what they're called, a different name. They're not like the small ones we have here, the Hass avocados, but the big avocados. And I got papaya and I got some fresh bananas. And I just put those together in my little apartment blender. And it's my favorite smoothie, avocado and banana. And, if you can get yourself some papaya, it's just great. So super good.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just
Mexico. We love you.
Just think about it. I'm here. I live in Austin, Texas, and there's this. I actually have here a cup of coffee with my oat milk, and this is Merit is a local coffee chain, and they make their own oat milk, and they have vegan tacos for breakfast. They have several options, and one of them is a vegan taco. It's really simple. It's just beans and avocado with pico de gallo on a tortilla, and then they sell out those first thing in the morning. I mean, you have to get there early, otherwise they're gone. But think about it. You can just have your beans. You cook your beans. Then if you have a Vitamix I mean, I love Vitamix. So you put it on the blender on the Vitamix. You make your refried beans
Mm.
without oil because they're not
You,
refried. You just like blend them in there, and they come hot out of the Vitamix. And it seems like I'm making a commercial for Vitamix, but then they come hot and blended out of the Vitamix, and then you just add avocado and pico de gallo, and you have an amazingly delicious taco with lots of protein, really filling, like if you were in a restaurant kind of thing. And now they sell those. I love the rice tortillas. So instead of being, if you
mm,
want to avoid gluten, if you want to avoid the wheat, then they sell the rice tortilla. So you can make your own burrito or your taco, and it's so simple. And it's
yes.
so simple. You don't have to get fancy, or you don't have to spend a lot of money on anything. You don't have, because there's a lot of amazingly delicious processed foods like you were talking about. Beyond Meat. I love Beyond Meat and all that.
Love.
But you don't need to go there. You can have very simple, basic, delicious, inexpensive items for breakfast.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sometimes simple is better. First of all, it's fast and it's so healthy. And then, if you're getting the good quality ingredients, so things that haven't been sitting around on a shelf for a long time, but they're fresh, it's so tasteful. It really, all the taste doesn't have to come from the processing, which is just so
No.
bad for you, but can actually come from the original item itself, which is so great. I want to riff off your beans because we're not done with beans here. By the way, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine says that you need at least a cup and a half of beans a day to live your longest potential. And the
Oh, really?
centenarians around the world, the Blue Zones guy, Dan, oh my gosh, Dan was on my show. What's wrong with me? Dan Buettner was on
Mhm.
my show talking about how the people who live the longest around the world live to be 100 or over. They all have a cup to a cup and a half of beans every day. So, got to get those beans, like Marco's saying. Sometimes when we have guests over, we take beans and we put them in the blender and we put in sun-dried tomatoes. We get off all the excess oil and we just blend those. That's it. Pinch of salt and move on. You've got this great dip.
And that's the thing. You don't need to use oils. I've been learning not to avoid oil as much as possible, and it's just unneeded. And the magic that you can create, and I mean, I have my Vitamix back there. The magic you can create because it comes already warm. It comes hot.
Yeah.
It's ready. You don't have to warm it up or anything. It's just like out of the blender. Even as a soup, you put it in your bowl, and you can add the avocado, or you can add, like I said, the pico de gallo if you don't want to do the taco, and you can just like eat it with a soup. I mean, bean soup in Mexico is like one of the most common things.
Right out of the blender. It's the Elysabeth Alfano Show. We'll be right back on WCGO. Oh, it's the original comfort food. It's so good. So we've got so much to talk about, folks. Thanks for being with us. We are going to get right back to the radio show, and this will be our last segment.
Oh.
Hey, everybody, it's the Elysabeth Alfano Show. Thanks for being with me on WCGO. Marco Antonio Regil, we've been talking about food, which is great to talk with you because you, like me, we're both vegans. And on your podcast, which is just Marco, the podcast, you talk a lot about being vegan and starting a plant-based life. And I'm so glad that you're doing that for the Hispanic community. And you say that there's a really positive response.
There's a very positive response, yes, because we are really careful on who we invite to the show, and when we talk about the plant-based lifestyle, we do bring doctors and nutritionists and people who are healthy and doing this. And yeah, that's the website marcoantonioregil.com. But if you speak Spanish, the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, all the podcast platforms, and you can just search for my name, Marco Antonio Regil, and then you'll find the podcast right there.
Yes, and you've been saying that you have 7 million downloads.
Yes.
And you haven't
thinking that is not an entertainment podcast. That's a lot, because there's other podcasts, obviously, that have much more downloads. But this is not for everyone. This is for people who have a little bit of consciousness, a little higher level of awareness, who really are committed to living a better life. So even though we laugh a lot and we joke and we make it as light as possible, we do get deep. It's a rebel podcast because we don't have sponsors. We can have really sponsors because the ones who want to sponsor us, they don't like our content. So we have decided to not take basically sponsors unless they're really, really aligned with our values. So yeah, it's right there. I mean, if you want to practice your Spanish, there you go.
I love it. So it's a good podcast when the sponsors want nothing to do with it. You're like, all right, well, then it's quality. Good for you. Well, maybe we should talk a little bit about how you went vegan, how this came to be for you.
Well, I mean, it's like in my dark past, I always say when I go to festivals, I speak very often. Well, I used to before COVID-19. I used to speak a lot in these festivals, been in Minnesota and Washington, New York, Mexico, Tulum, many places. I always tell them that I used to be the face of McDonald's in Mexico for about 3 years. 13 years ago, before being vegan. Well, 15 years ago before being vegan. And I endorsed, I was the face of McDonald's for 2 or 3 years. I can't remember. I was the face of Nestle. We toured Mexico promoting the milks of Nestle.
Wow.
I worked with Frito-Lay. I worked with all those companies because that's what I was doing. I was on television, prime time, great shows, and those were the sponsors, and I didn't know better than that. So when I tell them, if I made the change, anyone can make the change, because for me, it was not only a lifestyle thing, because I was a heavy carnivore. For
Wow.
me, a meal without meat was not a meal. So if I did that and I let go, I mean, it cost me a lot of money because I did have to let go of a lot of income that was coming from those sponsors. And what happened to me is I watched the documentaries. The first one I watched was Glass Walls with Paul McCartney, that PETA amazing documentary that is available on YouTube. That was even before Forks Over Knives and Game Changers and all of these amazing documentaries. That was just one that showed the animal cruelty. And in my heart, it was really clear that I did not want it to be aligned with exploitation, suffering, or anything that would make another living being suffer. So for me, it was the same reason. As a kid, I would cry when I hear the Jesus story of being crucified and all of that, and I didn't like what they did to the African Americans when I watched the movies and documentaries about the slavery, or what the Spaniards did to the Latin American indigenous people. Well, when I looked at what was happening to the animals, I said, this is exactly the same thing, and I just do not want to be a part of any dynamic where we're torturing someone in order to survive when we don't need to do that. And that was it. So it cost me a lot of money, but like I say it all the time, if I made the change, anyone, believe me, anyone can make the change.
Well, so I told you, everybody, what's not to love. So thank you so much for doing that. And for the way you explain it, I love what you say, that you just don't want to be a part of anything that
No.
causes suffering. And so when you see African Americans suffering in, Roots, maybe you watched that, or we all know the facts. So we obviously George Floyd. I mean, we're seeing violence every day today, or, used to not be
I
a crime to have domestic violence. That used to
no.
be acceptable at home, these sorts of things. So
Yeah.
you don't want to see any kind of suffering like that. And why would it be any different with animals?
Why would it be
So,
any different? I just watched the 13th on Netflix. Have you watched that
oh,
documentary? Highly recommend it to anyone. Me as an immigrant, I'm a U.S. citizen now, but I came to the U.S. 20 years ago, and I became a citizen. And when I watch this, I go like, "Oh my God, this is a part of the history of this country I didn't know." And the same is the same thing with the animals. Once I know, uh, is like I want to be a part of a positive change, and I want to be a part of this because the problem is not the problem of African Americans. It's not the problem of the animals. It's not the problem of gay people. It's not the problem of women. It's our problem because we have been a part one way or another. We have been a part of this unfairness and inequality in the world. So it's about let's stop it. Let's stop it right now. Let's be a part of this positive change. That's it.
so again, I just love what you're saying, because it's really our issue. It's not with, as you
Yeah.
say, with African Americans or animals or
No.
women or gay people. It's our issue
Ours.
because we find some violence acceptable.
Yeah.
And as long as society says, oh, yeah, go ahead and hurt that person. Oh, it's only women. Oh, it's only gay folks. Oh, it's only African
Yeah.
Americans. Oh, it's only animals. When you have that mentality that it is okay to inflict harm on others, you have a
Yeah.
violent society. And we're living through that right now. So you can't
And
get
we're
around
here.
violence if you purport it. Yeah,
Yeah, and we're here. I mean, I do believe that we're here to evolve, and I do believe that
me
we're
too.
spiritual beings having a physical experience. So it's not only about the suffering and the unfairness for the animals, for African Americans, for gay people, for women, etc. It's not only about them, it's about my own path as a
Ah,
spiritual being. It
yes.
hurts me. It hurts me to be a part of that. I'm here to be better. So obviously I am doing it because I have compassion for other people, but I also am doing it because I do believe, and maybe I'm wrong. Who am I to say what the truth is? But I think I believe in my heart that there's a spiritual reality, and that I'm here to evolve, and I want to leave this planet a more conscious being and a more loving being than I arrived. So why wouldn't I make that change for my own good? So it's a combination.
I love what you say. So when I went vegan, I figured, oh, I'm going to drop a little bit of weight. Woohoo. And I figured, oh gosh, everyone says you're going to feel better. So I thought, oh, I might get some energy. I already have a lot of energy, but I thought, oh, I might get a little bit more energy. What I didn't realize is that I had been carrying this burden, because when one's actions don't align with their values, that's a disconnect, and that disconnect is friction for you. And of course, being unkind to animals has never aligned with my values, but I was living a life where I was doing things 3 times a day that didn't align with my values, and it really weighed on me. And when I lifted that weight, I was like, oh my God, I hadn't realized I'd been carrying this burden, and it
Yeah.
was keeping me from being my best self. And I really felt, I know this sounds like maybe woo woo and out there, but I really felt like, woo, I am carrying a lot less now. It was great.
Well, the nice thing about that is that we don't have to believe you, and you don't have to believe me.
Right.
We just
Yes. Yeah.
give it a try. Give it a try. I never felt wrong. For me, it's this simple. I never felt bad or wrong after doing something good for other people, after doing something generous for me and for others. I never gotten the feedback of, oh, Marco, that felt wrong. I
Yes. Yeah.
always feel good. And for me, that's God talking back to me from my own heart. Like, do something good for others, and you're going to get the benefits of it immediately. So you don't have to believe this. This is not a religion. This is not about faith. This is not about, a promise. Just experience it. And if when you're mean, and when you're aggressive or violent, because we all have our moments, then just get the feedback. How do you feel after, when you're selfish or violent, verbally violent, physically violent, any kind of violence? Just track it. Just be a scientist with yourself and see, how do I feel after being violent or being a part of any abuse of any kind, and how do I feel when I'm generous, kind, and loving, and which one of these two is the experience I want to create more for myself. And there you go. So don't believe it. Just give it a try.
Yes, yes, I totally agree. Because ultimately, it is also really, in a way, like a lovingly selfish move. Like,
Completely
just
selfish.
try it. If you feel better, don't take our word for it. Just try it, and if it works for you, like it works for us, then what the heck? Like, why not keep it up? And I love what you say. You're never going to regret sticking up for what's right. So,
Exactly.
added bonus.
It, it's just
Um,
like the food, don't you think? Like when we eat healthy food, when
feels
we
so
eat
good.
healthy food, we're gonna feel great. When we eat toxic foods, we might enjoy it in the moment, but afterwards we get the feedback of there's something wrong in what I ate. So it's the same
Yes.
thing, just at the emotional, spiritual level. It's more subtle, maybe, but I think it's the same thing.
Yes, I completely agree. So your podcast, which has had 7 million downloads, it's in Spanish, right?
It's in Espanol, Elizabeth. It's in Espanol. It's in Spanish, and we're really happy with it. We have 130 episodes. We're now on a little hiatus for the month of June, but we're coming back in July, and we're really happy with it. And I'm doing online courses now, and other activities. I mean, it's a blessing to have the internet and all of these new platforms where we can communicate with people directly. So I'm really, really in love with the idea of this direct communication with people. So I'm spending most of my time online now
Me
versus
too.
television. You too.
So if you are an English speaker, I only have like 30 seconds left with you, gosh darn it. If you are an English speaker, well, how can we get us some more Marco Antonio Regil?
Yeah, well, if you follow me on Instagram, I do bilingual things there. I
Okay.
do,
Okay,
but you do it in
everybody.
Spanish.
You've got your marching orders. If you speak English, then head over to Marco Antonio Regil on Instagram. And if you want to get
Uh-huh.
that Spanish podcast, of course, Hispanic podcast, and all your classes, go to marcoantonioregil.com. I hope you will come back.
Thank you. I
Oh,
wish. I mean, I'm happy to be here.
you are the best. Everybody will be right back. Hold on. It's the Elizabeth Alfano Show on WCGO.
Cheers from
Stay
Australia.
here. No, no, no. So radio's over, but you're
Ah,
not. So
ah.
that we got the radio show. Oh, we're sticking around. This is way too good to let it go, folks. So radio's over. That'll air on Sunday. Let's get into more the nitty gritty if you have time.
Oh, of
Oh,
course.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're okay. Okay.
Okay.
Um, so thank you. I should have explained it ahead of time. And thanks for all the comments and everybody's loving up on Marco, which is so great. I'm so glad that so many of you are watching. Please share, everybody. Please share this so you can spread the love and the word that Marco's got for you because he's filled with great stuff. Now, I don't know if you can share. Are you coming out with a book? Can you talk about it yet?
Yeah, when I was coming out with the book, but I just heard yesterday from with Penguin Random House that COVID-19 has stopped our book. So
Stopped it in its tracks or just delayed
stopped it
it?
in the track. Yeah, we're writing the book, we're finishing the book, but unfortunately, and not unfortunately, things happen for a reason. So we can't do anything this year. We can't do
Okay.
anything this year. No festivals, no events, no
Yes.
nothing. Our
Can't promote
launch,
it.
so we can't promote it online, but it's a physical book, and
Yeah.
it's like I prefer I actually in agreement with Penguin Random House, so we're gonna have more time to make it even a better book, and we'll be promoting it next year. But it is a book, it is signed, and we're working on it, and it's called Change Your Story, Change Your Life, and it's just about the
Oh.
stories, changing the stories that you tell yourself. And obviously, there's nothing new about this. This is ancient wisdom. It's been thousands and thousands of years where it's been spoken about, our mind, the power of our minds, and how the problem is not what's exactly happening in the world, but is the interpretation or the story that
Mhm.
you are telling yourself about what's happening in the world. And being Latino, we love stories, we love
Yeah.
novelas, we love
Yeah.
drama, we have a lot of beautiful things. But in my culture, oh my God, we're so good at telling us dramatic stories about what's happening. We suffer and we create the suffering in our minds. And I know we have a lot in
Mm.
common, for example, with the Jewish community, where there's a lot of guilt too, and a lot of the beautiful family dynamics where you love each other so much, but at the same time you suffer a lot with the people you love the most because of the internal dialogue you have with yourself, and then that turns into an external dialogue. So
Mm.
if I can do something to minimize the mental suffering in my own community, that's the reason I'm writing a book.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I know what you mean. So much of your work, I mean, it starts with veganism, but it goes way beyond that because once you start to connect with yourself, and it's easier to do that when you take down some of the blockades getting in your way. And for me, that was, aligning myself with industries that don't align with my values. Once you start breaking down these blockades, whatever one might be for oneself, then you get to look within, and that's what you're helping people do. It's very entertaining and warm way. Okay, so the book is on hiatus, but of course you've still got your podcast and you've got all your classes. Now
Yeah.
we had to rush a little bit with radio, but now that we've got more time, are your classes only in Spanish or are they in English too?
The classes in Spanish.
Okay,
The
they're
classes
in
in
Spanish.
Spanish.
Okay,
We
only Spanish people are getting help today. Sorry.
well,
Just
in
teasing.
English, if you think about it, in English, you already have so many people, so many resources,
Yes.
so many great teachers.
Oh, I
And
see.
in the Latino community, we're bringing little by little all of this information. So obviously, the problem when you are, but this is even good for there's because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of bilingual people who follow you or who have Latin roots, and sometimes the problem in the mainstream self improvement world is the same as in television, is really white. You know what I mean? It's
Uh-huh.
all the teachers and all the
Interesting.
examples and all
Mm,
everything is like for a very white culture.
mhm.
And Latinos, we have our own little different world inside ourselves, so we can learn, but we need to adapt that to our own dynamics, our own families. And I mentioned the Jewish community because we have so much in common with Jewish people. We come from the same roots. We have the same dynamics with our mothers and grandmothers and families. We have the guilt trips. Judaism and Catholicism have a lot in common.
Oh, yes,
So,
Catholics. Yeah. As an Italian, we always say that we have a
oh,
lot in common with Jewish people as well. So
there you
the
go.
temperament, the love, the hate, the passion, the spikes, the
Opera, and
opera.
Italian, Italy, and opera and drama. Drama is like
I know.
I love you. You have to be mine, or I'll kill myself, or I'll
Yes.
kill you, and you will both. If you can't be mine, you won't be of anyone else. And why is God punishing me with all that drama?
Yes.
Some areas, it's our cultures are very beautiful because we are creative, we're loving, we embrace each other, we open our hearts, we open our doors, we open our families, we take each other as part of the community in a really easy way, which is harder to find in the Anglo-Saxon community,
Mm.
which is very nice and kind, but more like separate and independent. We are we function more together, so there's beautiful things about that, and we want to keep those things. But the drama and all these stories that we tell ourselves and the misunderstandings that we have about loving, like we have a big misunderstanding. We think that loving is possessing someone, and then
I,
that's the suffering comes from there.
well, I was going to say, yes, there's this big understanding that loving, I love you, therefore I must make you suffer.
Yeah, if I'm not suffering, I'm
Yes.
suffering because I love you, so it's okay to suffer. It's
Yes.
okay to suffer, right? And we make it okay to suffer, and don't get me wrong, it's okay when suffering, it's inevitable, and we can take suffering as a tool or as an opportunity for learning and growing, like when a disease shows up,
Hmm.
or with a financial crisis shows up, or the someone dies in her family, or there's the divorce, or there's something that we didn't plan and just happens. Then suffering can be a great teacher, like Eckhart Tolle and many other of the
Yes.
great writers and teachers that are have been mentioning this for decades, tell us. But when we are creating the suffering in our heads, it's like when you're in a plane. I don't know if you've been riding a plane and then suddenly the turbulence starts. So you're not suffering because of the turbulence. You start suffering because you start creating the story. I'm gonna die. What if I die?
Ah,
What if the plane falls?
I
And you
see.
start experiencing the whole process of dying and being burned, or maybe staying alive with a handicap condition, or and that's the suffering that is not happening. It's just in our heads. So that's something that in the Latino world happens very often, and I think more often than in the Anglo-Saxon world. So we do have a different way of living and different challenges and different gifts.
Yeah, it sure can get messy.
Yeah.
But as you say, so many wonderful gifts. But I think you're talking about like the power of now. Is that what you're talking
Power
about,
of
Eckhart?
Now, my
Yes,
favorite books, Power of
yes,
Now, The
and
New
not
Earth.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. The Power of Now
The
and
Power Now, The New Earth, or if you read Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements, The
I
Master of Love.
love that book.
Yeah,
Oh, the
yeah.
Four Agreements. I just love that book. Yes. So basically, trying to keep yourself from reinventing catastrophe in your mind that isn't there, that you
Not
expend a
there.
lot of energy on and sort of lose your grounding and can go off track.
All the experts in the world who have studied psychology. I did a master's on spiritual psychology in LA at the University of Santa Monica with the Ron and Mary Holnick, doctor, who are doctors in psychology, and it's really well known that 90% of the suffering happens in our heads. It's
Mm,
not from. It's only 10% of the suffering that happens from the actual things that are happening in the physical world. Is what we create about that. What
hmm
we it's like with COVID-19. It's horrible if your a family member has passed or is sick, or you're sick and you're in a hospital and you're suffering. That's
I
real.
want
That's right. That's real. But the suffering of fantasizing of what if I get it? What if I get sick? And then you start visualizing yourself in the hospital, and you're gonna die, and you're gonna be you're gonna feel suffocated, and what is my family gonna do without me? And all of that suffering, it's not happening. It doesn't help you. But the mind thinks that it's gonna help somehow to worry.
Well, let me ask you about this because I think so much of what you're talking about is creating a healthy habit for yourself. So you probably didn't grow up reading the newspaper, but if you got in the habit, like, oh, I'm going to have coffee and a newspaper, coffee and a newspaper, then a year down the road, you couldn't imagine like starting your day without coffee and a newspaper. So some of what you're talking about is creating that habit. So you just create new successful patterns for yourself. So I'm wondering, you've kind of been put to the test. COVID-19 came along. How did you do? And what were some of your trip ups and what were some of your successes? That's probably not the right way to word that question, but I think you know what I mean. Like,
Yeah,
how
no.
did you handle the stress?
Well, you know what? It's really interesting because sometimes you think people like you and I and many of the people watching or listening to this show, obviously, otherwise they wouldn't be here, are people who like somehow getting better. Otherwise,
Yes.
they wouldn't be here. So you think like, why do I read so many books? Why do I go to so many workshops? Why do I listen to many podcasts? All these conversations, all the yoga, all the meditation, all the practice, all the tai chi, or why do I do all of this? Well, because of moments like COVID-19. That's
Yes.
that. That's when you see a huge difference. So if you ask me, I'm not going to tell you I'm having an amazing time. I'm not going to tell you I would rather have the life as we had it before in some aspects of it. I'm not going to tell you I haven't suffered and gotten desperate and going like, oh, can you make it stop already? But for most of the time, I would say 80% of the time, Elizabeth, I've been really happy. I realize that I've learned to be happy with myself, accepting, and my practice has got me through these 3 or 4 months in a very healthy way. I miss my friends. I miss my regular life. I miss my trips. But you know what? I've had a really beautiful time with myself and with my doggy here in Austin. And I see other friends who never trained themselves in any way. And that's Bernie. There's the doggy, Mr. Bernie Sanders.
So wonderful.
His official name is Bernie Sanders. Uh, and I see my friends who never read, who never go to yoga, never meditate, and they're just not working on themselves. They are the ones that have been suffering the most because
Mm,
they focus on what they're missing out on, what they don't have, and they're just praying for this to be over versus the people who have been working in themselves. We have the opportunity to focus more on being grateful, being present, finding the hidden opportunity within this not pleasant situation. So you see it pays when you work in yourself. So my answer is like, yeah, I suffered somewhat, but 80% of the time I had actually an amazing time, and I'm really grateful for this time because I've learned so much during these 3 4 months of the COVID-19. How
so
about yourself?
Oh my gosh, so much to unpack there. I'm going to answer that question that you were kind enough to ask me back, but I just want to riff on a couple things because you've said some great things for people, and I want to make sure that they kind of take those back or take those to heart. So when you do all this training, it sounds like you're saying, I'm paraphrasing. Tell me if I'm wrong. When you do all of this training and you have it under your belt, you realize that all this training is a dress rehearsal, and then a challenge comes. And rather than have it be like, oh my gosh, I'm challenged, think of it as it's opening night. I've done all the practices. I've shown up to all the rehearsals. So this is my chance to shine. It's opening night. The curtains are going to be drawn, and I'm going to be able to put into practice all the stuff I've learned, and I've got it under my belt. So, one of the very few good things about age, there's not a whole heck of a lot, but there are some things. And it's that you've been around the block enough to know, like, I got this. I don't have to be afraid all the time. Like, I've been through crisis before. I've taken my classes. I've learned my lessons. I've done my work. I've got my routines, my practice. And I got this. I'm going to come out of this okay. So I'm going to say, just like you, I mean, my heart goes out deeply to anyone who is sick. Clearly, that's a different realm, and I'm not in that, and nor is anyone in my family. So I'm grateful and I'm lucky, and I can't even imagine what some people are suffering through that is real suffering, not made up in their head. I'm hearing that 100%. But for someone who hasn't been affected, I have been saying, okay, I didn't see this coming, but there's an opportunity here because I've doubled down on all my vegan podcasts. I created a new podcast, the Plant Based Business Hour. So I'm really tapping into the business world and how more and more vegan companies are out there so that people can have more choices, because ultimately you need more than Beyond and Impossible. I've doubled down on all my work. I've taken this chance to do a lot of learning for myself. So it's been, in a way, like, gosh, I found myself with extra time.
Exactly. Extra time. I mean, in my case, we lost about 15 events, conferences, workshops that we had in Vegas, Mexico City, Cancun. And we lost a huge campaign, like what was going to be
Ah,
my most important income of the year. But at
yes.
the same time, I had the time to be with myself, and I
Mm.
had the time to launch my first online course. And we have now 5,000 students in 3 months. We've enrolled 5,000 students, and I've been able to give them way more, to listen more to them, to have more
Yes.
time besides the online taped stuff. I had more time. We have our private Facebook group. So I can just think, if COVID-19 wouldn't have been here, I wouldn't have been able to give the attention that I've given to my really heart centered dream that came true, which was launching my first online course. My doggy got sick. He has a heart condition. He had an ACL surgery during the COVID-19, and I've been with him every
Ah,
single day of his recovery, and I
ah,
love him with all my heart.
ah,
I wouldn't have been able to do that. I was traveling every single week. I was out maybe 2 or 3 days of the week, so I was an absent father for him. So it's, if we but see, that's a training. There's advantages for everyone, but it's a training,
yeah.
when you are looking for the good. The Buddhists say that the key is to make, what's it saying, that to turn venom into medicine, right?
Ah,
But to turn venom into medicine, you have to have the awareness and the development level, the consciousness inside you,
mhm.
to know that there might be medicine in the venom. There might be
Yes.
something good in this catastrophe. If you don't even have that place of neutrality, where you have the curiosity of saying there might be something good, you'll never see it. It might be there for you, like it's for everyone, but you won't see it. So that's the pain of training and training and training your body, your mind, your consciousness, surrounding yourself with healthier people, listening to things that are helping you develop yourself versus just watching television. I canceled my cable subscription finally after so many years of having it and not watching it. I don't watch the news anymore. And sometimes I'm like, I'm missing something important. Well, I just catch up on YouTube. But that time that I've created since I canceled my cable, I've been able
Yes.
to give it to other things that are more important than watching one piece of the news being told in 25 different ways, and all these
Yes.
debates between Democrats and Republicans who don't listen to each other and don't want to find a solution. Everyone just saying I'm right, you're wrong. That's not been serving me. It's more of service to have conversations like this with you.
I will tell you, it's really not serving anybody. It's not just you. No one's really getting served by that Democrat versus Republican ongoing banter that helps no one. So I would agree with that.
Because there's nothing like there's no negotiation. You see it, right? You notice that, and of course, if
Yes.
you're on one side or the other, of course you think I'm right, the other ones are wrong. But there's no middle point. There's no middle ground. There's no, hey, okay, can we come to an agreement? Can we give in and negotiate? Where is that
No,
giving in?
I don't even think they pretend that they're even interested in that anymore. Because I don't think they are interested. But now they used to fake that they were interested in that, but I don't actually think they're interested in that at
It's
all.
very polarized, right? Very,
So polarized and
very
such a
polarized.
colossal waste of time because those folks aren't doing anything really
It's
to
sad.
help
It's sad because
advance. Yeah.
that's not the kind of leadership we want to see. And
Oh,
I'm
we
not
have
talking
no
about
leadership.
everyone. There are people out there. It would be very unfair to say that everyone is. There's people who have that openness, and you see them. There's a few of them that you see their more open attitude, but it just became a game. Like, let's fight. Let's like a football game or something. I don't
Yes,
know.
it's like never getting off the roller coaster. I mean, it's just there for effect. But I've been really happy to block that out as well. I mean, I pick my little headlines here and there. I, open the digital paper, pick my stuff, but then I move on and I got to get out of that space pretty quickly. Um, let me ask you, because we're riffing so much on all that you've been giving to people and how people are soaking it up. You've got 7 million downloads and you've got 5,000 people registered in a class that just launched during COVID. I mean, so there's been a great response from the Hispanic
Yeah.
community. What what would you like to be known for? And what work do you feel that you still have to do?
Oh my God. What would I like to be known for? I would like to be known for someone who was able to uh, help people who don't have access to training that is
Mm,
thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Because I'm very fortunate. I'm blessed. I've worked really hard. I
mm,
created for myself. Nobody gave it to me. I didn't inherit anything, but I'm blessed and I don't want to say lucky, but I'm fortunate that I can have. If I see a 3 day course with Joe Dispenza or Eckhart Tolle or Tony Robbins or
mhm,
Michael Beckwith or something, I can afford a couple of $1,000 and go and pay and get that. My heart is with the people who cannot afford that.
mhm,
Is the people that I grew up watching in my life back in Mexico, the
mm,
immigrants that I see here in the US, people who don't have that kind of money. That's why my mission is to digest and bring that information that I've learned that it has cost me literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in years and years of my life, to digest it in a very simple way at a very accessible price, uh, so more people can have access to this. Because if we don't help, it's I understand. I'm all about empowerment and I'm all about people taking care of themselves. But if we don't give them the basic tools,
tools.
if they've never been given the basic tools, if they've never been given an opportunity, how can we expect and ask for something from them? So that's my mission. So if I'm remembered when I leave this world as, oh, this guy made it available for the masses or for more people to have access to that information, my mission would be more than accomplished.
Doesn't
So
that
that's
feel great? I'll tell you, it is a huge source of joy to have a sense of purpose. So for you to feel so aligned with that purpose, I can see, I used to call it, or still call it, the bingo effect. So when you put your skill set and your passions together,
yeah.
bingo, you're like 150% of yourself because you
Bingo.
know it's what you were meant to do. You're aligning what you are good at with where you really want to focus, and you just come together. And the reverse is also true. When you don't align your skill set with your passion, every day can feel like lifting heavy furniture.
Yeah.
And you know the difference when you're aligned. You feel like, woo, this is happening, man. This is easy. To when you're like, oh God, I can't believe I got to do this now.
And that's beautiful, and that's the magic of the internet and the information you're sharing. So I really want to acknowledge you for having this space and
Thank
creating
you.
this opportunity for people to to keep practicing their development. And of course, we all have many things to work in ourselves, and
And it
that's
never
part of the
ends.
challenge. It never ends. It
No.
never ends, because being spiritual is not about not being about being perfect, or it's just about being responsible. And when you get off track, catch yourself as soon as possible,
Move
you
back.
know, have your process, go through your emotions, but be responsible for them and get back on the kindness and the track of something of enriching your life and other people's lives. Don't allow yourself to get in the ego way for too long. Just get back as soon as possible and go through your process, because it's not inevitable. It's part of learning.
Yeah, we're back to getting that good training, because when you have that good training, you fall off the wagon, but you get right back on. Even like with a good diet, you maybe have a weekend or something, it doesn't work out as you thought it was going to, but you get back on, and you're off and running without too much of a delay.
Mhm.
So, kind of riffing off what I asked before, I'm wondering, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now? Because you've done so much learning. So, what's the one
Oh,
really big thing?
so many things.
Yeah,
Oh my God,
yeah.
that's such a great question. So many things. That's exactly what I tell them. And when I give online classes, I tell everyone, I wish I'm 50 now, but I wish that when I was 20, there was a podcast like this one. There was an online course like this one. I wish I would have heard just clearly, just the very basic idea
Yeah.
that what's in my mind is not who I am. That really basic idea, that what's in my mind is just a consequence of things that I've learned, and then I can unlearn what I've learned that is not serving me, and I can rewire my mind. I can reprogram my mind, that I can decide what to think and what not to think. I thought that I used to be very jealous, very I came from Mexico, so I didn't know it, but I had a macho mentality, and I suffered because of that, and I made
Mm,
other people suffer, and I just thought, this is the way I am. And I used to say it. My mother used to say, "Look, yeah, Marco is really jealous. That's the way he is." Well, she raised me like that, and she was jealous too, and we were all jealous. And I would date girls who were very jealous, and I thought back in the day, this is the way I am. I just have a strong
mm.
character. I get, when I get angry, when I'm loving, I'm very loving, and when I get angry, I get really angry.
Almost a point of pride.
Yeah, exactly. This is the way I am. And then I learned that doesn't there's no such thing that as this is the way I am. Uh, I can decide how I am. So just that simple, basic principle of
Mm,
someone looking at me in my eyes when I was 20 or 15 or 14, I wish was
mhm.
when I was 7, and telling me like, Marco, you
Ah.
can decide
Mm.
who you are. You can
Oh.
decide what triggers you. You can decide what you do when you experience things that are not pleasant. You can decide how you relate with your mother and your brothers and your friends. You can decide between being an angry, fiery, feisty little kid, and you can decide to take your passion and channel that in the loving way and not in the angry way. You can decide to be a peaceful. When even 13 years ago, when I went vegan, I was really angry. I was very angry. And if someone would have told me at that time and moment, you can decide to be a peaceful activist versus an angry activist, because I was angry for the first few years, just that awareness is really basic. I wish somebody would have told me. I'm glad I know now.
Well, I love what you're saying, because you're empowering yourself. All these things, as you say, weren't working for you, but actually hindered you. And when you realize that you have these choices, that it is not predestined for you, that what other people tell you isn't your reality, and that you can make that for yourself and you choose your own thoughts, you are so empowered. You have so much freedom and so much power. And yeah, and I love that you're also saying you're freeing your mind from being so tied to the outcomes of things. So when things don't work out, because who really knows the future? Nobody knows how it's all going to shake out. That you're more tied to being happy with yourself in the moment, regardless of the outcomes. Your book tour is canceled. Okay, book tour is canceled, but you're still living that authentic life that gives you a lot of joy, that doesn't have a lot of drama, that's freed you up from some, personal chains. And, you can sit in that spot for a long time and feel good. So I
And
don't
now that
know.
you're saying that, that's I haven't thought about it, but you just said it, and thank you. Yeah, I got that phone call from Penguin Random House, the director, the publisher in Mexico. They called me and they were like really concerned, like, Marco, we've been thinking that this is not the right. And I was like, heck yeah, that sounds like a
Yeah.
great idea. I don't think it's a good year. And I never I haven't thought about it a single second as a bad thing.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
publishing, even though it was one of my big goals this year.
Yeah.
See, that is that is a positive gift that I'm giving to myself, just being able to flow with reality versus suffering. God, you don't want me to publish this book. I'm not meant to be a published author. How in the world is this happening? I have a contract with Penguin Random House. We're going to publish the book, and then suddenly this evil COVID-19 comes up. No, you see, I could be suffering because of that, and that would be a story. But you just made me realize that I didn't tell myself that story. So that's a big win. I'm grateful.
Yes, it's a huge win. And it's also so funny to hear you say it like, that's a great idea. I got my dog to play with. So let's move on, folks. I got
was like, you know what? I want to. There's a big the biggest book festival in Latin America is called the Guadalajara Book Festival, and I've been envisioning being there with my new book and
yeah.
giving a conference there, and that's what I want. And I said, no, I want to be there. Let's wait for 2021. I mean, who cares? Let's just wait for the next year. And you know what? And if for some reason I never published a book in my whole life, I'm still happy.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
attached to. I would love to, and I hope I publish more than one book. But I'm not attached. I'm not gonna be unhappy because of the book. If that's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. Who cares? It's like
And
freedom.
seeing that is all the work that you've done before, because we've probably both been in that spot where it doesn't go your way and your immediate reaction is like, oh, but
Why?
if you can free
Why,
yourself, yes,
Lord?
right. And why is COVID happening to me? As if it was
Exactly,
like
it's a
out
personal
to get
thing.
you. Yes.
God is punishing me. God sent COVID-19 in the year I was going to publish my book. But you know what? I have to say thank you. Thank you to all the Sundays I spent and when I lived in Los Angeles and listening hours and hours of conferences, live conferences, online conferences, audiobooks of Michael Beckwith, which is one of the teachers that I admired the most. The guy from Agape, the teacher, the leader of the that spiritual church called Agape. Marian and Ron Holnick at the University of Santa Monica. The 5 years I spent studying with them, all the books and workshops and retreats with Eckhart Tolle and the ones with Tony Robbins and listening to and watching Oprah and listening to Oprah on Sirius Radio, and just like hours and hours and hours and hours of listening to the same ideas coming out of the mouth of different people. Mariam, what's her name? Oh, I just the one who was running for the presidency, a Democrat
Marianne
candidate.
Williams.
Marion Williams. Yeah, I used to go when I lived in LA. I would just to go sometimes on Mondays to hear about the book, the Book of Miracles, the Path of Miracles, the Course of Miracles,
Yes.
and and I could keep adding and adding and adding names of teachers that have been amazing, and I've been hearing the same things over and over, and then suddenly it's like, if the book is not published, I'm okay with it.
So you've done your work. And
Yeah, it does. It does help. It does help.
Yeah.
COVID-19 and I have friends who have lost loved ones. I have friends who have
Yes.
gotten sick. I have friends who are doctors and they're working in hospitals in Mexico and in New York. And I hear horrible tragedies and things that are very challenging for people. And my heart and my compassion and my love goes
Yes.
to all of them. Goes to all of them. I'm not
Yes.
making fun of this. I'm not saying it's not
No.
challenging. I wish it didn't happen. But
Yes.
since I personally can't do anything about it, I'm not gonna take it as a personal course. And I choose to think that somehow all that suffering that is happening, somehow at the spiritual level, is bringing something good for those souls that are going through the struggle. And that's the only way I can hold it in my heart. Because if I don't, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying that this is the most convenient way I can hold it in my head. Because otherwise, it would drive me crazy. It would drive me crazy.
Yes, and also, we really don't know the outcomes yet. And I know that maybe sounds callous, but the story hasn't been written. Sometimes I tell people that, if you're sitting under a tree, the world looks very, very shady. But if you step out from that tree, you realize, oh my gosh, the sun has been shining the whole time and I didn't see it. And all it took was moving out from under the tree. So we can't see the whole story.
Yeah.
We don't know how this is all going to shake out. So like
I'm sorry, go ahead.
just like what you're saying, you know, we don't know. So you might as well stay in your grounded in yourself and just keep working on you and be happy with your life the way it is and what isn't good for you. So this is another thing I like to say to people. You must advocate for yourselves. So that's one of the things that's been great for COVID-19. You know, I'm not looking for doctors to tell me, and I'm not looking for politicians to tell me, and I'm not looking for my parents to tell me or my friends to tell me. I'm trying to block out what everyone's telling me, and I'm trying to really advocate for myself and do all the work and do all the reading and get all the information. And I, as soon as I did that, of course, I immediately went vegan and I started changing some things in my life. So, in this time when things are so tricky for people, I think it's great to be doing the work to advocate for yourself, to
The
give
work,
yourself the skills.
the
Do the
work.
work. There's no way around the work.
Yeah, yeah. Byron
Uh,
Katie, that's another great teacher. Byron Katie, who has that's what her system is called. The work,
the work. Yeah, because
the
there's no
work.
way around the work.
Exactly.
Well, okay, so I have a couple quickie questions for you, more like exit questions. Like some of them are long-term answers, but really they're sort of shorter one-term answers. Sorry, one-word answers. This isn't a one-word answer. I lied. This is like a short answer. So, of course, you have that gorgeous dog. Let's bring him back, Bernie. He's so wonderful, this gorgeous dog. Um, and I believe that you probably think that there are no differences between pets and farm animals, but I'm wondering if that's true and if you could elaborate.
Of course. Well, that was one of the aha moments that I had when I watched that video, that documentary of Glass Walls with Paul McCartney, the PETA
Yes.
documentary that you can find on YouTube. I think is everywhere. I always loved my dogs, and I never realized that. I don't know. It's just the marketing, right? You see the cows in the milk marketing, and you see they're happy cows, they're grazing,
Lying. That
they're
is not
free.
true.
Not true,
That is
not
not
true.
true.
When
Yeah.
you see what's happening and you realize, oh my God, the cows are the same, the pigs are the same. The pigs are even more sensitive and intelligent than dogs. Like right now, we're seeing people horrified with the Chinese markets when they're, that celebration again of the dog meat festival, when you see all the doggies being eaten and served, and
Awful.
people feel, yeah, awful, but it's the same
Same
thing
thing.
we're doing to the pigs. And I just went last
Hmm.
week here in Austin to one of the sanctuaries here, and I took pictures of them. I have an Instagram account where I share photography, which is my passion. It's called Pics by Marco, and I took pictures of the piggies, and they're so sweet. They were so sweet. I mean, one of them, I was taking pictures of him, and he was like talking to me, like, "Stop taking pictures, come rub my belly," right? Which is the same thing that Bernie does when I'm just like, not close enough to him. And when you actually realize that they're exactly the same, that only in my head it was different. Just it's
Hmm.
just it's just the same misunderstanding of reality when someone white thinks that someone with darker skin is different, is the same misunderstanding when we think that a pig and a dog are different. Only in our heads. It's just a fantasy, something that we've learned to believe in order to justify our actions. And something I've learned reading, watching documentaries, meditating, going to the Holocaust Museum in Israel and Mexico, I connect the dots, and it's always the same thing. The pattern is that in order to abuse another human being, or in order to abuse different species, we humans need to justify it somehow. And it's always the same formula. We're not the same. That is always the same
But
formula.
we are the same.
That's exactly. But that's what Hitler sold to the German people, to the Nazis, right? Jewish are not the same. They're not even human. They killed Jesus. They have different features, and you can measure them and you can identify them, and they're the sons of the devil. So that's the formula. We are not the same. So then we can abuse them. Slavery was the same. The lie was black people are not the same, so we can abuse them. Oh, interesting. So it's the same with the animals. So pigs are not the same as dogs. You will need your dog, but pigs are not the same. Oh, so therefore we can exploit it and torture it. So Or the same thing with women. Women are not the same, right? So they belong to us. We guys own women. So every time we go into that pattern of we're not the same is when abuse happens. And that is the origin of all this misunderstanding, that we are the same. We are the same. And if we can give that idea an opportunity in all the aspects of our lives, then I think we have a chance to move forward and be more compassionate and more loving. And that's, for me, that's the essence of the whole thing. I don't know. What do you
Hashtag
think?
retweet. We are the
We
same.
are the same. We
We
are
are the
one.
same, and that abuse comes from accepting the lie that different skin colors make us different or different species make us different. Hashtag retweet. We are the same.
And I thought about it the other day. I used to have a chocolate lab, Lucy, who passed. I used to have it in Santa Monica when I had her for 8 years with me, rescue, beautiful lab. And I remember at some point someone told me like, oh, yellow labs are more intelligent than
Oh
chocolate
my
labs. And I
God.
was like, really?
Wow.
And I remember thinking, is this just a trickle down racism?
Trickle
You know,
down
it's like
to my
white
golden retriever.
white people think that the color of their skin makes them more intelligent than brown people. So this has trickled down to dogs, like when a yellow lab is supposed to be more intelligent than a chocolate lab. How stupid is this? It's
But
like,
I've heard people say that before, that white dogs are better, they're calmer, etc., than black dogs. It's just
well,
we're racism is speciesism right here, folks.
they kill them more at the shelters.
I know they do.
You've rescued animals. I've rescued animals.
Yeah.
We know rescue organizations, and they tell us like a male black dog
Oh my
is
God.
the least lucky on being rescued. I mean, that's if someone is going to die, if a dog is going to die at the shelter, is going to be the black male dog.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
does it sound familiar?
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Does it sound familiar? Where have
Particularly.
I heard
Yeah.
that? Well, hold on. Who's in jail? Who's
Right.
in jail? Who's being abused and who's being sounds
Same lie.
familiar.
Yeah.
Is this a pattern that we have been following
Of abuse.
of
Mhm.
abuse? Having said that, I do have a lot of friends, and I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge them. I do have a lot of white male friends who are very active in the movement of compassion and
Oh, good.
equality, because it would be unfair to say that there's not an awareness and that white people are not waking up,
And it's not only men. I mean, I know a lot of, women who realize it's a lie, but I know a lot of women who perpetrate the lie. So it's not just men who follow the racism and abuse. It can go either way. You can change the world for good or for bad, and it's not sex dependent.
And you know what? Yeah, I agree with you. And I think it's really important to distinguish personal taste versus inequality.
Ah,
Because let's say I'm Mexican, I like tacos and burritos, right? I'm free to prefer tacos and burritos than hamburgers.
sure.
That preference.
Vegan, you can.
Or vegan, exactly. But
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Is that I gravitate towards tacos and burritos doesn't mean that I'm going to make it miserable for the people who like hamburgers.
Right. Yes. This is a preference.
There's people who gravitate towards redheads, right? Or people who like Latinos, and people who like African Americans, and people who like blonde people. And that's fine. You want to marry someone your own race and you're attracted. That has nothing to do with being fair and loving with all races.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean you have to marry someone from a different race. It's like preference is one thing, inequality is different.
Yes.
A lot of people get confused in that.
And I'll go further and say, like, At least stop the abuse. So even if you're not out on a street corner, with a picket in your sign, at least stop abuse where you see it in your life and around you. That would be a great start for people as well as animals, because ultimately we suffer when we believe the lie. Because got to
That's right.
advocate for yourself, folks. It is not true, and you're just creating, as we've been talking about in this podcast, just creating a lot of suffering for yourself. The
Yeah.
more interest you have in keeping someone from being their best self is a lot of focus on negativity outside, when it'd be better to focus on the positivity you can create for yourself, for your own quality of
Yeah.
life. Nobody
No.
knows this better than Marco. Okay, what are your predictions for the future? And
Oh
I'm
my
going to say,
God.
of course, I know, and I said one word answer. What a crazy girl. Okay, and of course you're
Astrologist.
going to say plant-based world, but beyond being plant-based, let's say the next 3 to 5 years, where do you think we're going?
Where do I think I'm going? Well, I want to be positive, and I want to think that this whole Black Lives Matters movement that has been propelled to a completely different level,
Mm,
thanks to the unfortunate events that happened in the last month, that just shocked everyone. I do feel that we are in a point where we're actually changing.
yeah.
I want to I feel it in my heart. I could be wrong, but I feel it in my heart that this is a before and after. So I do want to think that I choose to believe and trust that this COVID-19 and the whole situation we've been going through are going to take us to the next level in our consciousness. So yeah, I do feel we're going to continue going into towards a more conscious planet, more plant-based options, more people going plant-based, or minimizing the consumption of meat, and that there's going to be more quality for everyone. I know there's a lot of people who are not going to change, but I believe uh in marketing they say that, right? There's a percentage of people who are not going to change. There's a
Mhm.
percentage of people who have changed already, and there's a gray area. There's a percentage of people who are in the middle. I think the ones in the middle are
Flexitarians.
are the ones, but also in what I mean about in politics and racism and all those issues, not only in the plant-based world. I think the people who are in that neutral zone in between are being pulled more into a way more conscious lifestyle in the eating habits and towards racism, towards women, towards many other things, the planet. So I do think that those people in the center are going to be gravitating more towards a more progressive and conscious way of living. And there's a segment of people who are not going to change, and they're going to die like that, and it's part of reality.
Yes, but that's okay. We can not focus on them, because if this middle group does shift over, you're going to have a majority of people who are interested in doing the right thing, interested in creating more good than harm, interested in putting out positivity and making positive change part of their life for their themselves, but also for their kids and the planet, and, as you say, next generation. So I would agree with you. I think
Thank you.
we are at a very unique time in history. I think we are going through a cataclysmic change, and it's very exciting if you choose to be hopeful, which I do. Okay, now we're really getting into okay, off the top of your head, because I didn't give you any of these questions ahead of time. So, off the top of your head, if you're having a bad day, because you seem to be in such great practice, is there a phrase that you say to get yourself back in the game? Like I like
Yes.
to say, nose to the grindstone, eyes to the sky.
Oh, say that again.
Nose to the grindstone, eyes to the sky.
Oh, that's beautiful. I'll remember that. What I think is something I learned taking yoga classes, and there was a teacher in Santa Monica that would say all the time, "Nothing is forever.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is forever." So this pose that is making you shake and you're hating it
You can't
and you're
breathe.
sweating and you feel like, why is he taking me into this? And nothing is forever. And you can break it at any point. You can stop it at any point. You're here because you choose to be here. Nothing is forever. So when I'm going through moments of struggle, even when the struggle is with myself and I'm just angry, or I'm just pulled into a lower level of consciousness and my into my anger, into my sometimes I feel like a victim. I have my moments where I go down. I just think like, okay, nothing is forever. I'm going through my emotions. They won't last forever. I'm going to be able to get over this. COVID-19 we're going to learn either to live with it, or
Right.
it's going to disappear.
We're gonna
or we're
transcend
gonna
it.
or we're gonna transcend it, or we're gonna learn something from this. The financial crisis, this whole political madness that we're seeing is not gonna be forever. It's all a part of a process. So that's my little mantra is like come to the present moment. Nothing is forever, and then focus on gratitude. Like,
Mhm,
what am I grateful for? What can I learn from this? What is it here?
mhm.
Because when there's a problem, the mind tends to go to the negative.
Yes, panic
So,
mode.
and yeah, in survival. So it's like bring my mind back and go like within this chaotic moment, what can I be grateful for?
Mhm,
What can I be grateful for?
mhm.
And can
And
I find something, a lesson within this very uncomfortable situation? Can I
ye
find it? And can I be grateful for that? That's it.
yes, yes. And where might there be something good here that I wouldn't have otherwise had? Just as you're saying, absolutely. Okay, what are we always gonna find in your fridge?
My fridge, you're gonna find fruits because I'm Mexican. I love my fruits. You're gonna find greens because I love my greens, and I've learned to be a healthy vegan. And milk, oat milk. Oh my god, I love oat milk. There's this brand called Oatly. I'm pretty sure you've
Yeah,
you've
oh, yes,
you bought
sure,
it.
yeah,
That is my favorite brand ever. I don't get
yeah.
paid by them.
Yeah.
I'm not an investor in their brand. Actually, I'm an investor in a different brand, but my favorite brand is Oatly. And I love oat milk. So you will always find oat milk. And when I run out of oat milk, I'm thinking about I need to go. There's a little place here in Austin called the Rabbit Food Store. It's a little
Mm,
grocery shop that is
fun.
100% vegan, and that's where I get my Oatly, and that's where I get my little vegan things. Highly recommend that if you come to Austin or you live in Austin. Hey, if you come to Austin on vacation, once the COVID-19 is over, come here. The vegan food trucks are amazing. There's a couple of really good restaurants. It's not like LA,
Yeah,
it's not that advanced. LA is like
yeah.
I haven't seen
Mecca.
any other place with
Yeah.
so many amazing restaurants. But the food trucks and the restaurants that are here in Austin, I are amazing. Austin is a very, very vegan friendly city.
Yeah. Okay, Austin folks, everybody, it's on the list. What is the one go-to meal you can always make? So let's say right now you're at home all the time, so you're cooking probably a lot. But let's say you were on book tour and you didn't have a lot of time. You walked in the house and you're like, okay, here's my go-to meal. I make it all the time. Every time it takes me like 10 minutes or under, and it's always good.
Smoothies. I mean, like
Mm,
smoothies. I have all my superfoods and I put some greens in it and ginger and
ginger.
is the vegan protein and curcuma and maca and cacao, and I do my mixture of smoothies, and I always make sure that I add ginger and some greens, some real
Yeah.
greens, some spinach, some kale
Oh.
in it, and this like really filling. Or
Ooh.
cashews. Cashews are great,
Yeah.
unsalted, unroasted, just natural cashews. I can travel with them. You just need a very small amount of cashews to feel fulfilled and to
Mhm.
have planning goes a long way. So there you go.
Yes, particularly if you're traveling, then, I like to travel with edamame, and everyone's always looking at me like, how much did she pay to get on this flight? She's got fresh food, because all the food's so gross and packaged on the, yeah, it's so great. Okay, my very last question for you, maybe even already answered it because we did talk a little bit about snacks, but you sound pretty healthy, so I'll switch this up for you. What's your favorite junk food if you ever let yourself go off the reservation? What's your favorite junk
No,
food?
it's really easy. I'm a big fan of Beyond Meat. Beyond Meat.
Oh, okay.
Beyond Meat burger, Beyond Meat burrito, Beyond Meat hot dog. Beyond Meat is just has changed the world because I didn't
Yeah.
go vegan because I didn't like the flavor of meat. I went vegan for spiritual, ethical, health reasons,
Hmm.
and but I like the taste, and that's what Beyond Meat has given us, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I live like literally. I'm in downtown Austin. This is where Whole Foods started. So
Yeah.
I have the original Whole Foods about 3 blocks away, and
Wow.
inside Whole Foods. There's a it's not a restaurant, but it's like a fast food. You can order online and just pick it up there, or just can order there. It's called Next Level Burger, and it's
Yes,
all
yes.
they have all kinds of burgers, and I go there, and that's but my favorite is Beyond Meat. And there's another place here, food truck called Arlo's here in Austin, that also serves their own patty, and they have their burgers with Beyond Meat, so they have the two options. So
So
vegan
good.
burgers are my sin.
Yeah.
That's my biggest sin, definitely.
Yeah, yeah, easy to love. And I've had Ethan Brown over to my house. I mean, you couldn't get like a better guy. He's just
Yeah.
in it for all the right reasons. And I love watching their success. And it's just so gosh
Yes.
darn great. And I love that Starbucks picked them up in China and that their stock's doing so
Mhm.
well. And so very fun. Marco Antonio Regil, you and I could talk for a very long time.
Forever.
Forever. I want to thank you so much for giving us so much today. You really gave of yourself in this podcast. I'm so grateful. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for walking us through so many great skills and necessities to help us stay grounded and on track and in good practice in our lives for positivity for ourselves and the rest of the planet. So I am so grateful. Everybody follow Marco on Instagram, because that's where things happen in English and in Spanish. And then if you speak Spanish, well, don't hang around here. Go right to Marco. Go straight to the Marco podcast, which you can find at marcoantonioregil.com. And also your classes. That is so awesome. You already have 5,000 people. So get into the game, folks. You can see how great he is. I want to thank you so much for being with me. And all of you folks, please share this because there is so much that people can learn from it. And if you came here late, then of course, go to my podcast, Awesome Vegans. It's on iTunes and everywhere. You just find it, Awesome Vegans, because you'll want to hear this entire episode. Marco, don't go away. Everybody else, I will see you tomorrow at 1:00 right here on this station for the Plant-Based Business Hour. Bye, everybody. Thank you for all you do. Thanks for being vegan. And together, we're taking back our health and the health of the planet. Marco, stay put. Bye, everybody.